Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Boyos Discuss, the podcast where we pick a topic and then shoot the shit about it for a while. This week we're talking about episode 12 of Shenmue the Animation, which is titled Guidepost. I'm Matthew and I'm joined by my co-host Ben. How's it going?
Pretty good.
So before we get into the synopsis, there are going to be spoilers for this week's episode of the anime as well as the Shenmue games, so we do recommend watching the episode before listening to the podcast. With that out of the way, we don't really have any Shenmue news this week. There aren't any updates with that company that may be doing Shenmue 4, possibly.
Oh, no more apple and bananas?
Yeah, no more apple and bananas.
The hell, man. We're starving out here.
With any luck, though, at least my hope is that, with, the good ratings, maybe next week they'll say, yeah, we're gonna do Season 2 of the anime, officially. That would be really cool to sort of have the ending of the anime and then be yeah, we officially have confirmation of that, but we'll see. So with that, let's get right into the synopsis. We have the pre-intro scene, which is literally just the ending to the last episode, and it sort of is a waste of airtime, in my opinion. It's I don't we have 22 minutes to do the episode,
People just they need to learn now that we're not like normal people watching it week to week. I feel like everybody just binges shows now. So it's you don't need to fucking remind us what happened in the last episode, because we're gonna sit down and watch 10 episodes today. This is another thing that's happened. I'm watching Hunter with my roommate, and it's just every first 5 minutes of the anime, it's just bro, I know.
Yeah.
You already did this.
And they it's sort of different with shows on HBO where they have a dedicated thing that you can skip, that you're meant to skip. It's previously on,
right,
and it's its own segment that doesn't cut into the runtime, but also those shows are 40 minutes long, so that's a little different, obviously. But I don't know, 2 minutes of runtime, that's sort of
recaps are dumb.
Yeah,
in 20-minute episodes.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, so we get through that ending to the previous episode, and after the intro, we have Wong on the motorcycle with Joy, and they're talking about helping Ryo and Ren out, and she's basically trying to talk Wong out of it. She's like, you can't fucking go up against this gang, you're just a kid, like a rational person would sort of say, but he's intent on going through with it, since he wants to follow Ryo's example and become a better person. He sort of gets a lot more development, I'd say, as a character in this than he does in the game. We don't really, I guess, know much about why he wants to help Ryo, whereas in this, he's I don't have
be somebody.
Yeah, he's Ryo got dealt a pretty shit hand with his dad getting killed, but he's not letting that stop him from pursuing his goal.
And that was cool. He's I'm an orphan, I steal to survive, I can't go to school, I don't have parents, and I don't go to school, so I can't get a job, so I literally have to steal, but I don't know if I'm gonna eat the next day. And it's I don't like that. I'm gonna change, I'm gonna be like Ryo. And I'm yeah, and I really like that they sort of do this thing where all of the side characters throughout Hong Kong are all helping out. And it feels a lot more fleshed out than the stuff in Yokosuka did. Whereas, we had some sort of backstory with Mark and Goro, but it felt really, haphazardly thrown in, I guess. Whereas, it's where we had one episode with them before.
Yeah, exactly.
And then they're just well, I love Ryo. It's really? You talked to him for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But this, we've had, a whole half season of them interacting with him the whole time.
Yeah. So
I guess not Ren, but Ren's been with him consistently for 3 episodes now.
Yeah, but the reason they give for him wanting to help Ryo, I feel is a lot more believable. Well, there's that, but that sort of is an excuse for him to want to become or sort of grow outside of Hong Kong, I guess, and sort of have an adventure outside of that. But yeah, I think that they've handled that a lot better than the Yokosuka portion. But so he's I want to help Ryo out, and you're just all the other adults, fuck you, Joy, and he runs off on his own. So inside the Yellowhead building, Ryo and Ren, they're getting chased by Don Yu, who's sort of lumbering behind them. He's slipping around and causing like dents in the building because his momentum, he just like can't stop himself.
Too thick.
Yeah, he's too thick.
Little thickums denting the wall.
And so they come across this like gap in the floor, and the only way across is this sort of wooden plank, and that is a 100% how it is in the game, and that sort of is a callback to when they're finding Yondazu, where they have to cross.
Planks,
yeah, it's like that for that entire building. So we get a bit of that here, which is neat. So they cross over that one plank, and Ren, he kicks the plank out of the way, and he's like, yeah, and it's like that. There's no way Donyu would have.
It was like creaking under their weight. It's like,
Yeah.
bro, you should have left it.
It was like bowing down.
Yeah, and he could have a big like gotcha, and he runs across it, breaks. He goes no.
But they kick it out of the way, and he sort of has this comical thing where he's like trying to run at them, and he sort of is like stopping himself from falling over the ledge. And he's like, "Fuck you! Like fight me like men!" And they're like, "No."
What's your name? Fuck you, Ren.
But yeah. So after that, we have Joy. She drives by the come over guest house, and she sort of is reminiscing about Rio and thinking about like, damn, should I help that handsome Japanese lad?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, yes.
The answer is yes.
The answer is
always yes.
And some Yellowhead's goons show up, and they start chasing her. And the big, thick, or buff, sort of scrunch face guy, he sees her ride off on the motorcycle, and this guy passes by on a bicycle. And he fucking, like, screams at the dude. He's like, "Give me the bike now!" And the guy's like, "Holy shit."
We have the gag for the rest of the show.
Yeah. And so he's chasing after her on this bicycle. And so Joy, she rides up by Wong, and she's sort of like, "Okay, I'll help you." But it's only because they're after me now, too. Like, she sort of is hiding the fact...
Bitch, you compromised me.
Basically. But, yeah, she's hiding the fact that she's actually got a good heart deep down.
Oh.
And so she's like, "Yeah, I got a plan to get us into the Yellowhead building. Just follow my lead once we get there. And I'll keep them distracted while you go ahead and help Rio and Ren." But after that, we go back to the Yellowhead building, and Rio and Ren, they're stopped by Yuan, who attacks them with a fucking chainsaw.
Yeah, it was random.
And like that's 100% how it happens in the game. He comes up and he's got the chainsaw. The chase is a bit longer in the game, and I think it has more like sort of action to it, where like Rio, he has to block the chainsaw with like a metal pipe, and there's like sparks flying. It's really sort of cool.
Very cinematic.
Yeah, and so essentially what happens is Rio and Ren, they're running away. And these two goons sort of show up, and they kick them down, like, in sync. They do this, like, cool jump kick thing, like, in tandem together, and knock them out. And then Rio, he kicks down some rubble to sort of prevent Yuan from chasing them. And that sort of ends that brief scene there. But after that, we have Wong and Joy. They get to the front of the Yellowhead building. And there's these two guards there, and she's like, "Hey, let me in. I'm Chun's daughter from the White Tie." And everyone's like, "What?" Like,
yeah, who?
Yeah, like, I don't understand. But after that, Donyu, he shows up to Yuan, and he clears the rubble. And they get a call on the radio, basically telling them that Chun's daughter has showed up there. And Yuan is like, "Oh, shit. She's gonna try stopping the deal. We gotta fucking do something about this."
How though? Like, I am the daughter of the White Ties.
It's like literally a bunch of dead people.
Yeah, who cares?
And Donyu agrees with that sentiment, and he's like, "They just lock her up in the basement."
Yeah, whatever.
Like, whatever. She's not gonna do anything. So Joy and Wong, they're sort of in this like reception room. And we get more exposition about the White Tie that we already have had, which, again, that sort of ties into the, like, we're sort of wasting runtime here by being like, they ran all the casinos.
Then they boom-boomed.
Yeah, they boom-boomed. And so it's like, I get that they're trying to drive home that point, especially for people who maybe didn't tune into the previous episodes, but still, it's like, come on, we got 22 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, come on. So yeah, they're talking about that, and essentially what happens is Wong, Joy's like, well, you got to find some way to help Rio and Ren, and Wong is like, well, I'll go through the vents because that makes sense in a multi-story
I've seen
building.
it in every movie ever.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah. So yeah, he goes up into the vents to look for Rio and Ren, and then after that, we have Ren. He listens in on the radio so that they can figure out where Yondazu is being held, and instead they find out that they're gonna lock up Joy in the basement, and they're like, okay, well, we got to rescue her. And there's sort of this thing where, at first they're like, yeah, Chun's daughter is here, and Rio's like, I don't know who the fuck that is. I don't care.
Good for her.
And then Ren is like, we fucking know Chun's daughter. It's Joy.
Dun dun dun.
Yeah. And so they decide they're gonna go ahead.
And I was like, oh my god, I still don't care.
Yeah. But they had to rescue her anyways. And so the Yellowhead goons, they try taking Joy captive. She puts up a fight. She puts one of them in an arm lock, and he's like,
twists his arm behind him, and he's like, you bitch.
Yeah. And Master Baihu, who is the Final Fantasy looking character, he shows up.
Kefka, Voldo Kefka.
Voldo Kefka. He shows up, and he they focus on his foot movements.
Yeah.
He
tiptoes.
He tiptoes towards her and bonks her on the head.
He tiptoes and karate chops her.
Yeah.
It's the tiptoe tap.
Yeah.
The tap out two-step.
It's such a weird thing. They could have made that look cooler.
That was ridiculous.
Whenever they have Shu Ying fighting, she does this thing where there's slow-mo.
Yeah.
They could have done something like that.
You get a little tip. He's Tiny Tim coming at her,
but
tipping through the tulips.
Yeah. He knocks her out, and they take her captive. And we go to Wong, who is crawling through the vents, and he comes across the room where Yondazu is being held. And he basically breaks into the room. And he has this brief interaction with Yondazu and is like, you're this fucking, badass. And Yondazu's like, how does a kid know who I am? That's weird.
Huh?
And Yuan shows up to check on them and sort of hears the rattling. And they're like, hey, he's like, go back inside the vent now. And there's even more rattling. Wong is like,
I know.
And that just alerts Yuan. And he goes in to check on them. And as Wong was sort of crawling through the vents, there's all these rats sort of crawling through there as well. And so once Yuan is in the room there, he gets the idea to, he takes his lighter and uses it to freak out the rats, and they all leave the vent.
Yeah, he gets a bucket and he puts it over the rat, over Yuan's stomach, uses the lighter on it, because rats are scared of the heat, so they'll burrow through anything to get away from it.
Too Fast, Too Furious reference there.
So Yuan gets eaten through by a rat.
It's a weirdly sadistic moment for a fucking schlocky action movie.
I know, I was surprised the whole time, but they went for it.
Yeah. But he turns on the lighter, it freaks out all the rats, and Yuan, being the neat freak that he is, all the rats are jumping on him, and he freaks the fuck out. He's like, oh shit! And he runs out of the room, and he jumps on one of the other goons, and he's like, get him off me, get him off me. And so while he's freaking out, Wong takes Yondazu's, he's on this little wooden wheelchair thing, and he sort of wheels him out of there. He's like, yeah, let's go.
Now this is handicap access.
They got elevators, wheelchair accessible.
The world is our ramp.
Yeah. So after that, Rio and Ren, they find Joy in the basement, and Master Baihu challenges Rio, and we sort of get we get flashbacks to all the different lessons he's learned throughout Hong Kong.
They say all the voodoo.
Yeah, they say all the voodoo, and then there's that not blind dude who's like, focus on your mind's eye, whatever that means.
And while Rio's fucking daydreaming for 5 minutes, Master Baihu knocked him out.
If only.
Yeah.
But
he politely waits for Rio to snap back into reality.
But after he has all these sort of flashbacks, he mops the floor with Master Baihu, which is disappointing because
2 hits, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Like, bam, bam. You're
yeah.
done.
Whereas in the game, that's like, I'd say it's the most difficult story fight in Shenmue 2. Because you have to fight him 3 times before he goes down. And there's like quick time events after each fight. And if you fail one of them, you have to restart the fight from the beginning. And so it's like just this sort of thing where, I don't know, I feel like the 4 minutes in time that we've sort of wasted between exposition we already knew and the recap of the last episode, we could have had
More of a
longer
fight,
fight
yeah.
with Master Baihu. But it is what it is, you know, that sort of is just the nature of this medium, I guess. But he beats Master Baihu, and then he's like, "Oh, what's your name?" And he's like, "I'm Rio." And he's like, "Okay," and then he faints.
That's a cool name.
That's a cool name,
I'll remember
dude.
that name. It's dope as fuck.
Yeah. So they beat that one. The other thing that's cool is like you're fighting him in like this, it's the basement of the building, but it's also like tied to the sewer in this like cage fighting area. So like it's this cool action set piece, whereas in this it's like it is this little tiny cage.
We got her in a
Joy's
cage,
in.
yeah.
And it's like that's it. And so they rescue her from that cage. And they're like, "Why the hell did you come here? Like, it's so dangerous." And she's like, "I came to save your dumbasses." Like that.
Good job, idiot. You really saved us.
So after that, we have the most heartbreaking scene of the entire anime.
Oh, man.
That yellowhead goon who stole the bicycle.
Scrunch face.
Scrunch face. He comes up. He's arrived at the yellowhead building, and he's just fucking beat. He's like. And so he gets there, and who shows up but a bunch of his other comrades? They show up in a car, and he's like, "You had a car?" And it's like, I've never seen a more defeated man
That's
in my
heartbreak,
entire
yeah.
life. Like, he's just like,
Oh, he wasn't even angry.
he's just
"Oh,
like, that's
the pain."
Yeah. So, yeah, they figure out that Yondazu's escaped, and they start chasing after them. But Scrunchface, he still is putting up a fight. He's like, even though I rode from one city
he
to
rallies.
another, he rallies, and he's like, I'm gonna fucking chase this guy. So he's chasing after them. And Wong and Yondazu, they're sort of running through the building together, and they see Scrunchface there. And Yondazu's like, "Keep going, I got this, fam." And he puts his cane out and he fucking like jousts the guy down, and he knocks him over, and they're able to get past him. And they're going towards an elevator, and they're like, "Yeah, we're gonna get out of here." And who shows up in the elevator but the thick lad himself, Donyu, and he's like, "Yeah."
Taking Danyu away from the elevators, it's like taking the cream out of a Twinkie. He just can't do it. They're
He loves
inseparable.
elevators.
He does.
Stairs? Nah, he slides
think that
down
boy's-
them and cause dents in them.
Yeah, he falls
Yeah.
on his ass and dents the stairs. Nah, you need the elevator.
Hell yeah, yeah. So he's like, "Yeah, cut you fuckers." And so after that, Yuan, he has one sort of final fight with Ryo and Ren. He's got his little knife out, and they easily beat him. And Ren, he uses the handcuffs that Yuan had used to sort of attach him and Ryo together earlier. And he sort of like handcuffs him to the handrail of the elevator so that they can like interrogate him, I guess. And they're like, "Where's Yondazu?" And Yuan is like, "Well, I'm not gonna tell you. Fuck you guys."
But I don't even know. Yeah.
Yeah. And so Ren, being the fucking sadistic person that he is, he's like, Yuan's a neat freak. Like, I'm gonna take this garbage can, and he like threatens to kick it at Yuan. He's like, "Okay, tell us, or else I'll fucking kick this
I'll
at
make
you."
you all dirty and stinky.
Yeah. And so Yuan, of course, spills the beans and is like, "Yeah, they're on the roof. Just go there. Don't kick the garbage at me, though." And, they're like, "Okay, we'll head up to the roof." And, you sort of...
They
in
walk
the
away,
moment-
and I was like, "Oh, I totally thought they were gonna kick the trash out of him anyway."
And so, of course, then
Yeah.
Ren, being the fucking, like, bad, like, mean...
He's a bad boy.
Yeah, he's the Han Solo of Shenmue.
Yeah,
He
exactly.
he kicks the garbage at Yuan anyways. And Yuan is like covered in garbage now. and like fucking has this mental breakdown
Yeah,
as the
yeah.
elevator's doors shut, you know, and it's going down to the first floor or whatever. He's like, "Ah!"
Shattered the mind of that poor soul.
Yeah. And so after that, Rio, Ren, and Joy, they arrive on the rooftop. You know, they sort of get to the top floor on the elevator, and they run up the stairs, open the doors, and we see a helicopter with the Chiu Men symbol on the sign on the side of it, and Londi is like hanging on this sort of
rope
big
ladder.
Yeah, rope ladder hanging off of it, and we see Rio, he sees Londi, they sort of lock eyes, and then we end the episode on yet another cliffhanger. So it was a really fast episode.
It was.
What did you think of it overall?
It's fast paced. They honestly, like, this is kind of a thing for the past few episodes. They really suck at differentiating Kowloon from Hong Kong. Like,
Yeah, they have like one decent establishing shot in this episode where they show like the cityscape, or, like all the buildings sort of together.
and it's not that they're not, like, they are actually putting up these screens that say when they're in Kowloon. Like a black screen pops up. It's like, they're in Kowloon now. And it's like, okay, cool. But also, you know, you have like Joy and the goons just showing up from Hong Kong to Kowloon like it's nothing.
Yeah.
You know? And they even are going like, you'll never show your face in Hong Kong again while they're in Kowloon.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
He's been in Kowloon this whole
if
time.
I didn't know
Yeah.
geography or Matthew wasn't here to tell me, I'd be like, Kowloon is just a ghetto of Hong Kong, I guess. Like, it must
Yeah.
be right there.
Yeah.
I would never think it's its own city. You know, because the Yellowheads are working there and Hong Kong.
Yeah.
And the goons are just like, you know, so easily going back and forth. So,
Yeah.
yeah, there's not a very good sense of scale of distance between the two, or that they're pretty much completely different and in different spots. So, you know,
Yeah.
oh well.
I mean, yeah, aside from that, like, we've sort of talked about it throughout the episode, like, just focusing runtime more on new stuff versus, like, sort of rehashing other things. That's, like, my biggest pet peeve with this episode. It's not, like, to the same extent where I'm like, oof, that was, like, not good. Like, episode 4 and 5 of the Yokosuka part. You know, where I was just like, why are we doing this? You know,
Yeah.
so like it's not bad in that sense. And like, I don't even necessarily think this is a bad episode per se.
No.
They just skirt over a lot of things, and they're sort of going really fast. And I mean, they have to, because we only have 2 episodes left, but it is disappointing that we see stuff like Baihu sort of just, you know, like they did it, and it almost felt like they did it just because that's a thing that happens, not like...
Definitely.
Yeah.
They were like, this whole episode, they're just like, run! And they're running the whole time, and it's like, run, 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 run.
Yeah.
Okay, the end.
Yeah. So, why do you think the episode was called Guidepost?
No idea.
I don't know either. And I had
Guidepost.
theories, like, before this episode came out, that's, like, we would sort of wrap things up and have the fight with Don Yu, and then, like, get a bit of, like, the rural China where he, like, has to use the guideposts to find Bailu Village and Guilin. But that's
That would
not
make
at all
sense.
what happened. And so, you know, sort of bouncing off of that, this is the second to last episode. I did show you the preview for next week's episode.
Yeah.
What do you sort of think of that, sort of based on, I don't know, like, your limited knowledge of how the second game ends, just based on what...
I know you don't fight Londi at the end of the second game. And in the trailer we saw, you do, like, Rio is fighting Londi. I think that's necessary for an anime to do.
Yeah.
If you're going to finish this season, have a big season finale, be like, oh, he's finally facing, you know, the guy he's been trying to face since the first episode. Like, you know, even though he's going to get his ass kicked, like, that's a guarantee. He's not going to beat him and end the series.
Yeah,
You know it's coming, but I feel like it's still necessary for them to be like, oh, there's a lot for me to have to catch up to, and I guess I need a whole nother season to train again.
yeah,
So it makes sense why they're making him fight Londi.
yeah. And, like, I mean, my sort of gut reaction to seeing that preview was like, oof, I don't like that.
Yeah.
Like, and my hope is that when I actually see the episode, I'll be like, okay, my opinion will sort of change, but obviously I'm gonna have to wait until Saturday to figure that out. Because like that sort of is retconning what happens at the end of Shenmue 3. Pretty much that's how things go when Ryo fights Lan Di at the end of that game. It sort of is just like he's completely outmatched, even though he's had all these masters teaching him, he still like isn't at that level yet. And I don't know, like putting that here, I'm not sure how I'm gonna feel about that. You know, and whether or not they like, I don't know, my fear is that because like did you ever, this is gonna be like a weird deep cut, but do you remember the Series of Unfortunate Events movie that they did
with
Jim Carrey
yeah.
as Count Olaf?
Yeah.
They end it, and it's like they wrap everything up at the end of what would have been the third book. And
Right.
like I just remember being a kid in the theater being absolutely gutted that they ended it there and didn't be like, oh yeah, there's going to be a sequel, you know, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so my fear with this is that they might be ballsy and try to have him maybe win or like wrap up that loose end somehow. And like my hope is that since Yu Suzuki's involved with this, that they won't do that. But also like if they just feel like they're only going to get one season of this, or like they didn't know that from the get-go, it would be pretty popular in terms of like ratings on Toonami, and they were like, well, we got to cram everything into this one season because that's all we're going to get. Sort of like Legend of Korra, where like they have this really compelling villain, but they're like, well, we have one season, so we got to do it in one season.
Yeah.
And I don't know, that's just, I sort of have that fear, and you know, obviously we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
Yeah, I hope you're wrong, but I've been thinking that too this whole time. Like,
yeah,
if there's going to be another season, what's going to be in it?
yeah,
The third game, you know, that this.
Yeah, and it's like sort of going beyond that. How do you, like, because it being an adaptation, you're taking source material and sort of picking and choosing what you want. We don't have a fourth game yet.
Exactly.
Obviously, Yu Suzuki has an idea of where the story is going to go, but I don't know. It's just
I don't think an anime is going to do it before the games.
Yeah, and
So
that's
it's like,
yeah, it's a weird sort of place to be in, and
yeah, even if it goes perfectly, like they completely set it up to continue like it does in the games.
yeah.
You do the third game, the next season ends at the end of the third game.
Well, it's like
Then what?
the third game, at the pace we're going in the anime, you could do the third game in like 5 episodes. And so I don't know sort of like what we like, if more of it is fleshed out, that would be great. I would love to see more of that, you know, since clearly budget was a thing that sort of constrained Shenmue 3 in terms of the story that they told. But yeah, we'll just have to play that by ear and see how things sort of go with that. So do you have any final thoughts before we wrap things up for this episode?
No.
Yeah, I mean, I think we pretty much, since this was a pretty action-oriented episode overall, there wasn't a lot in terms of, like, plot, I guess, and so that's why, like, we sort of flew through that synopsis. So that's going to do it for today's episode of the Boyos Discuss. If you enjoyed the podcast and are listening on YouTube, then we'd really appreciate it if you like the video and subscribe to the channel. We'll be back next week to review the finale of Shenmue the Animation, which is titled just Shenmue. So anyways, guys, until next time.